What is up guys, Wraec is here with a new video, and today we're once again back on the Pioneer server, the test server for AFK Journey. I wasn't even sure if we were able to do that today, as they said server maintenance, some insane errors however, and that they had to fix before the server could go up, and apparently this was supposed to take till tomorrow, but I just logged in and it worked, so we are up here and we got Gunnar, and Gunnar is the focus of today's video. He looks absolutely great. I have to say this in advance, looks absolutely great. The cannons on his back, all the animations, even the voice lines are great for this guy. So definitely from that perspective a very, very nice hero. The rest of it, that is the question now, that is what we want to show. It's more of a preview video. We will do a full review, I think, on my account, because, well, then we have the final version and everything, but I want to show you how he works and what he does on the Pioneer testing server already. As you know, this can always change before it goes live on the official version, so keep this, well, in mind when you think about summoning him. You should always check out the live version and wait for review of that before finally deciding, because, well, you won't get your stellar crystals back when you have used them. This guy is a bit special. Usually a tank is more of a melee hero. Many of our tanks are. We have a few tanks like Granny Danny that have a few range type stuff going on, but a lot of those are just more in the melee range. Fresto, even something like our Lumont is in melee range. That has a very simple reason. For a tank, it is more, well, it is more suitable to be in melee range, because they want it to be a tank, and that means tanking the damage that the enemies do, sometimes even taunting them to an extent, and taking damage that allies otherwise would take instead of them. That works better when you're close to the enemy, because that will make them attack you. Unless, of course, they have some additional mechanism keeping them from doing that. Gunnar, however, has a range of 20. That means he will never move. He will not move in the melee range of an enemy by himself, unless the enemy, of course, moves to him. That is a very interesting thing to do for a tank, because it will make it innately more difficult for him to do his job of his class. That being said, it is really not uncommon for tanks to not be tanky or to do their job as a tank. I've kind of criticized this in the past, that many tanks don't really work as a tank, but are more keen to either being a warrior or some kind of support. That same goes for Gunnar, and I just want to show you guys a gameplay before we really get into anything. So in this gameplay I used him to support Sylvan. What he does is he places a tile on which Sylvan stands right here, and that tile will give our Sylvan extra damage, extra attack, and extra normal attack range, which is very interesting. It will buff his normal attack range by 3 actually, and will give him some extra buffs, including invincibility once this guy actually has dealt enough damage, and there are some further criteria that have to be fulfilled for this to actually work. We'll get all the details in a second. We already saw right here, Gunnar is already dead. He isn't super tanky, he really isn't. He's more of a support type. That is really the feeling that he will give you. Is he a little bit more tanky than normal units? Yes, but it's mostly one ability, his ability to grant shields. And he will do that, by the way, to all allies behind him. He will give all allies behind him shields. We will see a great performance of Sylvan here. That is a little bit, well, made possible by bugs on the Pioneer, should we say that? Because the units on the enemy side, the Alna and Zoria, just didn't do anything right now. But that worked out in our favor. We got a very nice piece of damage here. And not a whole lot of damage from Gunnar. I have yet to see a fight where he does a whole lot of damage. He has some other abilities that are more interesting, and it is really more on the support side, in my opinion. Going back into the details, let's see what it is. So we have this doomfield, we just saw it, I will show it to you again. There we go, so it's this field right behind him, and the ally has to stand on that tile and keep standing there. He's very, very similar in that extent to Hugin. Weirdly enough, the description is quite interesting. So when a battle starts, if there is an ally placed one tile behind Gunnar, he summons the doomfield. This description shows it as if it is a condition for his doomfield to appear that there is an ally behind him, when this is clearly not the case. For Hugin, this is the case. So Hugin really only puts the cogwheel or has the cogwheel down when there is like an ally behind him, or you can only really see it, so it gets like an additional bit of animation. For him, it just appears. So the text is kind of wrong in that it is not really conditioned for that doomfield to appear that an ally is placed behind him. He will do that from the start. But the interesting part really is it increases the normal attack range by 3 and attack by 30%. For some heroes, normal attack range is kind of difficult to get, and it makes some heroes rather awkward to use. We kind of recently had the example here with Mirael. Mirael having a range of 3, which is rather annoying because she will move very, very close to the enemy and only then do her attack. And a range of 3, that is really the point where it starts becoming rather annoying for ranged hero to only have that much of a short range, because that will require her to move closer to the enemy to do her attacks, especially if the enemy team is rather stationary. We've explored moving speeds a little bit in the past, but the point really is that a major part of your DPS in a PvP fight especially is when your hero starts attacking, so the timing of that. And for some heroes that requires them to be positioned in a certain way, especially for Mirael. If you don't position Mirael close enough to the enemy, it will mean that she will kind of have to make her way forward to the enemy side. And the way that they take can be a little bit problematic, especially if there are allied units in the way. It will be a problem because they will struggle to find the way, and this can majorly decrease your DPS, because if she moves for 2-3 seconds before even starting to attack, enemy units might have even started to attack earlier and will also get their ultimate skills earlier, which will decide on the fight and on the outcome of the fight. So this is rather important, which brings me back to the point of Gunnar's normal attack range increase being a rather strong ability. It is a rather strong ability, it is a rather strong increase, and it is rather interesting for certain units that possess a lower range set overall. So keep that in mind. If you want to combine with something like Mirael, that is definitely a great option to do so. Okay, so we can try to just do some stuff with Mirael. I thought might be an interesting addition to this video. I just built a very basic team here. I don't know if we can actually win. Zarya is very, very, very annoying to deal with, if I'm honest. Very great addition to the Graveborn team. We'll see that in a future video. And of course, enemy has Cider, enemy connects with Alna, which will make it very, very annoying. But I just want to see how much damage we can do, and to show you guys that she really indeed doesn't move. So we have a start here. We are on the tile, we have a very nice shield, we have a ton of buffs already on her, which is very, very cool. And then we can start dealing some proper damage. Sadly, our ult got eaten, which I don't like, but is so far okay. Cool thing is Gunnar will also attack the hero that our Mirael is attacking. So if you combine the hero that you place behind Gunnar with some enemy with some hero with a specific targeting, Gunnar will also respect that and do the same targeting. So we see very well protected so far, the Mirael, doing some big damage, I think, but hitting a lot of immunities here. We are again immune, and sadly our Gunnar died. Let's see if we can take out the Cider. Cider has this damage reduction and feels a lot more tanky than Gunnar, which I think is really interesting. Another hit. Let's see if we can check out Zarya. Zarya has 90% damage reduction. Also feels a lot more tanky than Gunnar, which is kind of fancy that this enemy team had like 2 units in there that innately feel more tanky than Gunnar. But yeah, we saw good damage output. We saw the utility of the normal attack reduction. Basically no damage here from Gunnar, but it makes sense considering we had an Alna in the enemy team. We had Zarya, which is oftentimes immune. We have a lot of invincibility also with Lily May, which I think kind of is probably more likely to be meta soon, but that is another topic for the future. The interesting part for Gunnar here really is you want to make use of the damage dealer that is on his board, which can be multiple. I mean, you can even use something like Cryonia, which has an ability, of course, to execute enemies. So big attack buffs are actually a very nice thing for Cryonia, because it will help also make her execute a little bit faster. You can try to amplify that with Pandora. A little risk here for this team is Alna actually moving on the plate after we have Pandora take Cryonia away. So let's hope that this doesn't happen and that maybe our Alna decides to move forward. No, moves directly on the plate. Right now we should still be on there. But the problem is, as soon as we exit the ult, this will likely shift us off the plate. And indeed, it moved us a little bit forward, so now we're no longer on the plate, no longer can benefit from the buffs. I think she moved back though. Not too sure. Took pretty big damage there. Oh yeah, so easy win now with the Cryonaya. Some risk involved. I think we can try this maybe again with Cryonaya not buffed by Pandora. Would be a fairly interesting test to do on this one. It has a little bit of a disadvantage as in Cryonaya kind of needing a long time to get her ult. But if we don't move off this plate, I think we have some advantage. The question is who we add to this team. Maybe we'd add a little bit of stall just by adding a Callan. That could be an interesting thing to do. I hate the position ring right here. I'll be honest, I hate the positioning. Maybe we change that up. Maybe we do something like this. I think that's a bit better. We still have the protection. We still have the positioning. We should be normal attack range. We have all of that going on and she won't move on the plate. Okay, let's try that. Let's try it without the Pandora buff. A little bit more massive buffs here on the Cryonaya probably. Problem with invincibility is we have some damage thresholds that we want to hit. And of course when we hit an invincible enemy we won't deal any damage to them. So that innately is a bit of a problem. That is very good though. Can we take her out? Okay, we took her out. I don't think we can win this. Or can we? Oh, we won! That was a lot closer. But still pretty good damage. So damage wise from the Cryonaya, I don't think we had a big difference there. So pretty huge buffs there from the Gunnar overall. The timing was a bit better than with Pandora because we had the faster ult. So that is something to keep in mind, definitely. But is a pretty good hero for that. Let's check it out. Okay, attack 30%, minor buffs here if you add ult power. The ult is very interesting. It shoots a projectile that will create an area that will deal damage over time, and it will also lose them 40% of 40 vitality, which will drastically reduce the heal that the enemies receive when they are in that area. Damage overall, from what we've seen, we've never really seen a fight where the damage was super high. We have the 6 cannons here, and those 6 cannons will deal pretty significant amount of damage because it also hits adjacent heroes. We saw that this can be rather good. And if there's doomfield attack with the ally within the doomfield, will also launch 6 coordinate attack, dealing damage to the locked on targets equal to 6% of their max HP, and we get a stun in there. So this ability I think is really good. It's on a 10-second cooldown. Kind of annoying. Global range though, which is pretty good. Absolute defense I think is one of his strongest abilities. We let out a roar, granting himself a shield that absorbs 450% of damage. Medium-sized shield, pretty decent. Grants a shield to the ally behind him, which is pretty good. And if the doomfield is active, the doomfield gets strengthened, which increases the attack speed to every ally behind him, I want to add. Behind, the further back on your side of the field. So everybody that is like in a later slot than him. Which is a pretty significant shield buff, honestly. I would love to play with that with the Shield Nova artifact. Ooh, that would have been such a great hero to use that with. That's a past season artifact, essentially dealing an enormous amount of damage whenever your heroes lost shield. We got some range def. Range def is very strong, 15 range def. For each ally behind this hero, increase range def and vitality by an extra 9. So is this potentially another 36? So you can get 51 range def? That's massive. Range def, and I want to point this out here for everybody that doesn't know it. Where do we have the explanation for defensive stats? Should be in here. Basically reducing the damage received from non-adjacent enemies by 1%. So 51 range def already mean that you take 51% less damage from like long-range heroes or any hero that basically doesn't stand next to him. That is an insanely strong ability already. Yeah, and then we come to the part that I already mentioned. Whenever the ally within Gunnar's doomfield deals total damage equal to 1400% of Gunnar's initial attack, Gunnar will launch a missile at a locked on target, dealing some damage, recovering some HP, okay. The interesting part is in his plus 50. If Gunnar's HP ratio is above 35%, the ally within his doomfield becomes invincible and gains an extra 50% attack. So that is the madness really here. So, and that the extra 50% plus invincible, if you can trigger that, that is insane. It is likely a lot more difficult to do on Pioneer than it will be on the real server. Because right now we saw teams with invincible over invincible over invincible, making it hard to hit such damage thresholds. But if we see that on on the normal server, people won't be able to stack that. They in general don't have the Alna. So if you place a hero, even something like a Chimera on there, would probably be rather strong. This makes the fire no longer expire. Don't really think it's too insane. The interesting part is really enemies within the scorched area cannot heal or gain shields. So this essentially makes it so everywhere he shoots becomes a no heal, no shields area. So enemies just can't recover in there. This the last part is strong. The first part, that fire no longer expires, really wouldn't be strong without the last part, but doesn't really matter to that extent. Okay, maybe a small PvE test. I don't know how tanky those enemies actually are. I put Gala behind him actually at this point, linked to Iron so that we get the Iron copy, and then I just put Bonnie. Bonnie on the tile would be an interesting thing as well, but the problem is she has an innate movement ability, so heroes like that also don't really work because they will move off the tile. Gala doesn't really have that, so that should work. Gunnar instantly taken out. Oh, but, of course. Yeah, the Brine. That wasn't very smart, Mr. Wraec. That wasn't very smart. Of course, the Brine can still deal damage. That was not very good. Probably can just use Mihira to block him. Should not be able to start that immediately. Maybe that gives us enough time. Ooh, taken out by one tornado from Cryonaya. Yeah, that is this thing that I said before. Like, not really tanky. Not really tanky. But certainly helps if you have automatic ults activated. Didn't forget about that. Very smart, Mr. Wraec. Can we survive this time? Okay, we get the ult. I survived a bit better. Of course, now we have the Cryonaya stuff active. That is very, very annoying. Didn't decide on taking on Gala. Interesting. Gala should have had the highest damage. I mean, let's check out the numbers here. Yeah, she had the highest damage. She did a ton of damage. Definitely. Okay, a reset up. We now have a Sylvan team over here. I think that is a little bit more interesting for this. Again, also with Cider this time. Cider, of course, meta. The question is, how good is Sylvan now in dealing damage to the enemies here? He will profit massively from Gunnar there. We will also get some extra stun. We already saw now, though, Gunnar can definitely be taken out, so it's a little bit of the same problem we saw before, where it becomes kind of tough for him to survive in certain situations. Now he stacked up enough shields though, so he was able to survive a Cryonaya attack, which is very, very good actually. Let's see that again. Looks so weird on this map, by the way, when Cryonaya attacks. Doesn't deal true damage, obviously, so isn't able to get through the Cryonaya. Cryonaya should target highest damage, still doesn't. Just me a little bit confused, if I'm honest. I reckon without charms we're probably not able to punch through that enemy team. Or are we? Oh, Sylvan damage. I mean, yes, and could sometimes have invincible. So that wasn't bad. Oh, and we saw the fire there at the end. A lot of the battlefield was on a fire, and I mean, the entire here... Ooh, okay, I take it back. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, he is tanky. He definitely tanked a lot right here. Pretty decent damage in PvE now as well. 144B. And I guess... Let's watch that again. I guess the damage over time after he did a few ults really stacked up to an extent. It certainly helps that when you have the fire up, that the heal is blocked. I think that is something that in many situations in PvE can be very interesting. Couldn't be taken out easily, but it was partly because of the shield. Like, he had a little bit of time to stack up the shield. I definitely saw that he is a little bit more vulnerable right at the start. But there we see the fire, now already on the enemy team. The targeting... I think if you manual the targeting, this could be interesting. Because then you could really specifically block the heroes that do heal from doing that. That is insane. The combination here at the end is just massive. Look at that. Half the map is burning, half the map is no heal zone. Now the rest of the forward area is really no heal zone. The Lawson would have done some heal, but it's just impossible for him. That is not bad. The question is not bad good enough? Is that good enough? Because good damage doesn't mean that he's used. Is this really advantageous over just plugging a Cider in? But from the utility side, I can say that this is pretty good. Damage-wise, also not bad. Can definitely say this is proper damage. This is more than I expected from him in PvP, which kind of believes me, or makes me believe that maybe we'll find a proper team for him in PvP as well, where he will shine a little bit more also from the damage perspective. The support side I do really like. I've yet to kind of see a team where he is like super OP. I could see him being like a hero that you like to put in teams. There's always like this thing that kind of the Hypergen and Celestial heroes that you like to build a team around. Something more akin to Cider, Cryonaya. Those are heroes you build a team around. And then heroes that you don't generally use as the main hero for your team, but that you just love to put into every single team. And this is something like a Mihira. Mihira isn't really like the greatest carry on her own, but putting her on a team, that helps a ton. That really does help a ton. And for a long time, this was the same for me for Skalita. Also like a hero that you could just plug into the team, get some shields, and just be a very, very all-around great hero, even when you didn't use her as a carry. And now, I mean, the most obvious choice for that title would be a little bit like Eliseth. And I think kind of Gunnar is the same. Especially if you build something like a Chimera team where you have like a very strong long-range hero. If you summon for Sylvan, interesting, definitely interesting. But even putting something like a Siren on there, or Masil, also very, very interesting. I could see Gunnar having a place in PvP, especially in Supreme Arena lineup. Will he be the top arena lineup? I don't know about that. I kind of feel like Cider cheese beats that. Having like Cider in there and just cheesing around with Eliseth and with my god, the names today, Athalia. It's still a little bit better. But nonetheless, a very, very interesting hero, and I will definitely do some more content of him. So if you want to support me, there are really two major ways that you can do it that really help me. The first way saves you a ton of money. That is definitely something that you should explore, because if you need some dragon crystals, then I wholeheartedly invite you to click the link in the description that will lead you to LD Shop. And LD Shop will not only save you a ton of money compared to in-game prices, you also support me with every single purchase. And if you register an account after clicking the link in the description, then you get a 15% and a 5% discount coupon, making your purchases even cheaper. And that will definitely help you. Right now, the event bundle is also still available that you can get. So all of the travelogues and everything that is still the best value that you can get this even cheaper right here. So definitely click the link down in the description, get yourself a nice account at LD Shop and save a ton of money. So thank you Gunnar for the support, and other than that, I would really appreciate if you could hit that like button and the subscribe button to not miss any content, especially when we do the video about Soria. So with that, I wish you a great day. I'll see us in the next one.